Welcome back to Microsoft Access 2010 Beginner Level 1. For more free lessons on Microsoft Access, make sure to subscribe to my channel and visit my website at accesslearningzone.com/YouTube. In Lesson 5, we're continuing to build the customer table. What about some different types of data? Well, let's scroll down here. We can add pretty much as many fields as we want to in the single table. Yes, there is an upper limit, but you realistically should never hit it. Let's put in email, and let's make this a hyperlink field. So when I click on the person's email, it will automatically launch my email program. We can also type in website and make that a hyperlink as well. This time I'll just press H on my keyboard, and notice how it automatically fills in hyperlink. I can then just keep pressing tab. Next, how about phone number, or just phone? Now this I'm going to also keep as text, not a number. There are a couple of reasons why. First, ask yourself, are you ever going to be performing calculations on this data? Are you ever going to need to find the sum of a bunch of phone numbers or calculate their average? If so, use a number type. If not, use text. Text handles these types of values better. Another factor to take into consideration, leading zeros. Some zip codes start with a 0. Well, if you use a number field to store that, that 0 will fall off, and the value will just become 9,832. So use a text value to store zip codes or postal codes in general. Social Security numbers, for example, sometimes start with a 0. So if the value that you're going to store needs a leading 0, stick with text. Most obviously, sometimes phone numbers can contain text. If you see a phone number somewhere for a contact and it includes text values, you don't want to have to stop and grab your phone and translate those from letters to numbers. You can just type in the text right into your database. Another consideration that usually comes into play later on is sort order. Numbers are always sorted numerically, whereas text values are sorted alphanumerically. In an alphanumeric sort, for example, 10 comes before 2. We'll talk a lot more about this later on when we get into sorting. So again, knowing what we know now, we'll stick with text for our phone number field. Next, I'd like to keep track of how many employees a particular customer has, assuming the customer, of course, is a company. I'm going to type it in as num employees. I'm going to abbreviate number as num. That's okay. Again, just maintain consistency. This is going to be a number field because I might sometime want to run a report that says, show me a list of companies with more than 50 employees. I wouldn't be able to do that with a text field. Now, when it comes to number fields, you can specify what kind of number you want. The default type is long integer. Long integers are basically counting numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and they're negatives. Sometimes, however, you might want a value that has a decimal or floating point number. For example, let's say we want to keep track of their discount rate. What type of a discount does this customer get on his orders? Well, that's going to be a number. And if we come down here in the field size, drop this box down, you can see there's several different kinds of numbers that are available. Now, we're not going to talk about them all today. There's bytes and integers and singles and all kinds of different stuff in here. For now, just be concerned with long integer for counting numbers and double if you need a decimal number. Don't worry about this decimal one down here. That's actually something different. For now, I want you to use long integer or double. Just those two things. We'll talk about all of these in a future class. So I'll pick double because I want a discount rate that might have a decimal point after it. 2.5%, for example. Next, I'd like to keep track of how long this customer has been with us. So I can send loyalty cards to my customers that have been around for 3 years, for example. So customer since, this will be a date time value. Remember, this can be a date or a time or both. Let's keep track of each customer's credit limit. That'll be a currency value. We can program the database later on to yell at us if their outstanding orders are more than $5,000, for example. How about an is active field? That'll be a yes or no value. Now, this is where a field might need some explanation. Someone who doesn't know your database might not know what is active means. You could put here in the description field on mailing list. And that will explain to an onlooker or someone using your database that if the customer is not marked active, he won't receive our mailing list. Let's add in a notes field. That'll be a memo data type. I pretty much include a notes field in just about every table because almost everything that I can think of might need some extra notes attached to it. The benefit of notes fields is that if you don't use them, they don't take up any space in your database. So it doesn't hurt to add a notes field to each table. Now we're going to skip some of these data types for now. OLE objects, for example, are really good if you want to store, say, an employee's photo in his record, or you can use an attachment field to attach his resume as a Word document. Calculated fields and lookup wizards, we'll talk about all of these in future classes. But there is one more data type that we're missing. We still have no way to uniquely identify each customer, and that is what the auto number field is for. So let's create an auto number field, and I'm going to call this customer ID. Now it becomes especially important later on in the expert classes when we start talking about relating tables together that we have a good auto number, a good unique way of identifying each record in a table, and that's what the customer ID is for. We might have 20 Johns. We could have 15 John Smiths. Phone numbers can change or be shared between customers. So the auto number is really the best way of uniquely identifying each customer. It'll never change, and Access will automatically maintain the list for us. The first customer is 1, the second customer is 2, and so on. Auto numbers never get reused, so we don't have to worry about deleting customer 4 and then another customer 4 coming in later. People can't edit customer IDs because auto numbers can't be changed. So it's the perfect field for uniquely identifying each record. In fact, you don't even ever have to see auto numbers in your database if you don't want to. You can if you want to. You can put them on your invoices or show them in your customer form, or you can leave them completely behind the scenes and never see them. Properly built, each table in your database should have its own auto number field. The customer table is going to have a customer ID. The product table will have a product ID. The order table will have an order ID. So each table gets its own auto number field. Now, as a matter of good design, I like putting all of the IDs up at the top of the table. I just built it this way so I could show you how to move fields around. Usually when I start building a table, the very first thing that I do is add the ID field. But now I can show you how to move it. So, take your mouse, click right here on this little box to the left of where it says Customer ID. Let the mouse go. That will select the entire row. Now, click again, and this time drag to the very top of the table. Click and drag, and then release. And there you go. You just moved a field to the top of the table. Again, structurally, Access doesn't care where in the table the auto number field is. I personally like to have them at the top. So now that we've got all the fields in our table, let's save the table. Because right now it just says Table 1, we haven't saved it yet. Let's come up here in the Quick Access toolbar and click on the Save button. The Save As dialog box appears. Give the table a good name. I'm going to call mine Customer T. I like to end all of my table names in T. That differentiates them from queries, which I end in Q, and of course forms and reports, which are F and R. It's an old naming convention. I've been using it for many, many years. Again, I capitalize customer, capitalize T, no spaces in your table names, just like your field names, for the same reasons. For consistency, I like to stick with all singular table names. This way, later on, if I'm making a macro or writing some VB code, I don't have to go, oh, was it customer table or customers table? I always know it's singular. Again, just a personal recommendation. You might see some books refer to their tables with TBL in front of them, like table customers. That's perfectly fine too. And if you're used to doing it that way, then go right ahead. For me personally, this is how I like to build my databases. Customer T, product T, order T, and so on. So I've got customer T in the Save As box. I'll click OK. Now I get this message up. It says there is no primary key defined. Although a primary key isn't required, it's highly recommended. What does this primary key thing mean? Essentially, a primary key is that one unique value that sets off each record from every other record. Now, we've already set that up. That's that customer ID. But we didn't tell Access that that's our primary key. You can do that manually by clicking on this primary key button over here, but I almost always forget to do it, which is why I left this in the video. I want you to see that I always forget to do it. Now you know what this means. So, do we want to create a primary key now? I'll just say yes. Access sets up that primary key for us, and you can see the little key symbol right there next to customer ID. Creating a primary key forces that field to never have duplicate values, which auto numbers won't anyway. And it does something called setting up an index, which we'll talk about indexing in a future lesson. Now that our table is all set, I'm going to go ahead and close it by clicking on the X over here. And now you can see the customer T right here in the navigation pane, all set to be opened up and have some data entered into it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. And also, don't forget to visit my website at accesslearningzone.com/YouTube for more advanced lessons and other specials just for YouTube viewers.